because, man, WWE has announced their first set of inductees into the WWE Hall of Fame for this year's class. Bull Nakano, I believe, is one of those people. I don't know that much about her, admittedly, but she is big amongst real, true pro wrestling fans, which I think is awesome to see that somebody of her stature and of her nature, even though she has amassed a big resume outside of WWE, can still have her achievements recognized by WWE. But I think the biggest story is that in Philadelphia, Paul Heyman is being inducted into this year's class of the WWE Hall of Fame. We've talked about this on the show before, that he should be inducted in Philly. So I want to know your thoughts about Paul Heyman being inducted. And I also want to know who should induct Paul Heyman in Philly.
Yeah, the second question is going to be really hard to answer, because who has the right to? Who has the right to? And also the person that like everyone associates him with now, he's like banned from the company just about.
Yeah.
So like now it does raise a question: who would induct Paul Heyman? That's a good question. But as far as he goes, I'm excited. I'm scared, because I'm like, wait, does him being inducted mean that Paul's gonna wrap it up soon? Because like, I'm so used to having Paul, and I'm so privileged to have Paul. I didn't really think of the idea that maybe there's gonna be a point in wrestling where he's not gonna be around, because he was like a staple for like the last 10 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the way that he's managed Brock Lesnar, the way that he's managed, I think Punk at some point, the way he's been managing Roman. Like, he has been such a major staple in elevating whatever stars he aligns with. I mean, obviously he did his thing in ECW. Like, he is like in his own way a generational talent.
Yeah.
And I love everything about Paul. I love his brain. I love his promos. I love his ideas that he has for stars. I just really appreciate him. And yes, he most definitely does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Shoot, I really hope that doesn't mean he's being sent off, because that'd be a crazy way to end the Bloodline storyline, to have like a Paul Heyman send off, because I'm not gonna be okay. Like, sir, you were meant to stay here with me. What do you mean that you're going? Like, where are you going? Like, you do realize we're all your grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, I feel some type of way. Now, as far as who should, God, that's so hard. Because, like, who literally has the right? I mean, Punk's not even a Hall of Famer. You can't induct someone unless, right, you're a Hall of Famer yourself. That's how it works?
Not necessarily, because I believe Stone Cold Steve Austin was inducted by The Rock, who technically is not a WWE Hall of Famer.
Sorry, someone just came down.
You're fine.
That'd be really weird to have Punk, but at the same time, you need someone that's very good with their words to induct Paul. Like, he is amazing and talented at putting anyone over, and giving them the proper setup. So I just feel like it's someone that is also an excellent mouthpiece, that has worked closely and directly with Paul.
I have one, but I want you to go ahead.
Because I'm thinking hard, and like who is worthy is my question for Paul, because I don't want no half-ass like speech for him, and I can't think of one right now. Do you actually? I want to hear yours.
So I'm going to start off with my little spiel about Paul Heyman, and then I'm going to go into my answer.
Yeah.
Paul Heyman is the greatest manager of all time. He is the greatest I wouldn't even say that. He is easily, in my opinion, next to Vince McMahon, the greatest creative mind in the history of pro wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
This man has had 6 Hall of Fame careers. We can take what he did in WCW with who we now know as The Undertaker. We can talk about what he did with being with ECW. We can talk about him being a commentator. We can talk about him bringing in Brock Lesnar. We can talk about him and Punk. We can talk about him and Brock again. We can talk about him and Roman. And that's not even including the stuff that he did in OVW, which set up the likes of a CM Punk, which set up the likes of a lot of the stars that we know and that we love today. He's the greatest manager of all time. He's one of the greatest creative minds in the history of pro wrestling. Like you said, he's a generational talent. And I believe that this is, long overdue, but I'm just glad that it's happening in Philadelphia. I feel like that crowd is going to pop crazy when he gets introduced, because Paul Heyman, as much as he's from New York, he is Philadelphia. So I'm very much looking forward to his induction, and I think that it's well deserved. I'm looking forward to the Paul Heyman Hall of Fame merch. I will be buying it. As far as who should induct Paul Heyman into the Hall of Fame, I have not only the perfect person, but someone whose inclusion in this ceremony will deepen the tensions between him and the bloodline. Stone Cold Steve Austin. When Stone Cold Steve Austin was fired from WCW in 1995, Paul Heyman called Stone Cold and said, "Come to ECW, work for me, cut some promos." He went there and created the Stone Cold character, and then ended up going to WWE from there. Now, we all know the history that Stone Cold has with The Rock. We all know that The Rock is currently involved in the Bloodline storyline. So how would Roman Reigns feel if the rival of his cousin was inducting Paul Heyman? It would deepen the tensions just a little bit. Also, something to consider, I don't think that this is Paul Heyman's last go around, because one person who he has been teasing, managing for a good amount of time is Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker, I don't think that Brock being etched out of Paul Heyman's story is the biggest deal in the world, because, as you know, Paul Heyman has never been someone to live in the past. He's always someone who's looking at what's the future of the product and what's the present of the product. He has the present of the product, which is Roman Reigns. But we're talking about the future of the product. It's Braun Breaker. I can't find anyone else that is the more perfect client and the follow-up to Roman Reigns than Braun Breaker.
Yeah,
I believe that I feel like he's going to manage Braun Breaker, and I feel like that's, after that, God knows what happens. But I think Braun is going to be his next client. But to wrap it all up, Paul Heyman, I'm just so happy that he's being inducted. It's well-deserved. If it's not Stone Cold Steve Austin, I think that ECW is a collective. So the Dudleys, Tommy Dreamer, Rob Van Dam, and Taz should all be there to induct Paul Heyman.
I'm sure they'll be invited.
Yeah, 100% will be invited. And considering that they have a good relationship with Impact or TNA, I don't think it's going to be an issue for them to get a hold of Tommy Dreamer. So we'll see what happens with that. But let us know about how you guys feel about Paul Heyman and Bull Nakano being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. But we are moving on.